Welcome, Congresswoman. It's great to have you at the table. You know, our hearts first off go out to the good people of Texas who are going through a very, very tough time right now. You mentioned that you know your concern is not your district, but you may have some folks who may have been affected by that. You also signed on to a letter demanding oversight on the government's response so far. First off, what are the chances of that happening, being in the minority, right?
Yeah.
But the importance of it, though, still remains that we have to see what the government did here or failed to do in responding to this tragedy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that one of the things that this government hasn't realized, or this administration does not realize, is that we are supposed to be problem solvers. And instead, what they continue to do is they continue to break things and make it more difficult for us to fix problems that people are facing. When it comes to these emergencies like this, and with us entering hurricane season, which will definitely most likely impact Texas, Louisiana, Florida, North Carolina, as we just kind of go up and down the coast, it is important to understand whether or not this iteration of FEMA is actually functioning for the American people. I know that it sounds good maybe to be like, oh, the governor needs to take care of it, otherwise it's a loser governor. But the reality is that people need to understand this is about resources, right? And so certain states just don't have as many resources as other states, right? The federal government is taking dollars from all of us, and they've got them in this big bucket. It is important that when you need them, that's kind of like our backup. That's our safety, right? And so we're supposed to be able to call them in for these huge disasters. But as we sent off these letters, unfortunately, we are in the minority, but we sent them off to the Inspector General for Commerce. We made sure we sent a letter off to FEMA. We sent a letter off to NOAA, because we want to understand whether or not this administration responded adequately. There are reports that the Secretary, Noem, failed to respond in an adequate time.
It was 72 hours.
72 hours. Seems like a long time. Especially as waters are continuing to rise and people are still lost. In addition to that, we wanted to know, what about these DOJ cuts, right? Let's talk about it. You know, I serve on the DOJ committee. This letter was co-led by Greg Casar, who also serves on Oversight and is from Texas. We need to understand, what was the impact? What does it look like at NOAA? If you've got it down to bare bones, were they able to actually get the information that they needed? And was it just a matter that there was no one there to get that information out? And from Commerce, we want to understand, as it relates to alarms and systems and warning systems, were there people in place to actually warn people? It doesn't seem like any of that existed.
Congresswoman, I am old enough to remember when a natural disaster would strike this country, and it would actually be a unifying moment, and you would have a leader at the national level who would come forward and remind us that this was a time to come together as Americans. It strikes me that this president's response to natural disasters, to crises, is very often bifurcated by whether or not he is talking about red state leadership or blue state leadership. Just listen to his evaluation and critique of a variety of leaders. Take a listen.
I have to tell you, the people here, first responders, the sheriff's office, all of the police, law enforcement, they've done an unbelievable job. Everyone sees what an incredible job the governor did. The federal government is doing a very bad job. They are not doing the job. They don't have people there. They don't have the people. Kamala wined and dined in San Francisco, and all of the people in North Carolina, no helicopters, no rescue.
I just got back from a tour of the suffering and devastation in Louisiana. Obama ought to get off the golf course and get down there.
Just a quick note to you and to our viewers: after his trip to Texas, President Trump is heading back to his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey. I think it makes it hard for Americans to assess what they are supposed to expect from FEMA when the evaluation from the president seems to shapeshift based around the politics of the moment. We had your colleague, Congressman Moskowitz, on with us. He made the argument that part of the answer, in addition to reform, is removing FEMA from the Department of Homeland Security. Do you agree with his assessment?
I mean, I don't know that that's going to actually fix it. Obviously, Kristi Noem is way in over her head. To have her be the one that kind of has to oversee this and somehow comes up with this idea or is okay with the idea of putting someone over FEMA who does not realize that there is a such thing as hurricane season, who also says something as idiotic as it's not the federal government that does emergency management, seemingly not understanding exactly what FEMA stands for, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, right? So we definitely have a level of incompetence that honestly I don't know if moving or shifting to a different department is going to fix, because unfortunately it seems like the only qualifications that this administration has required of the average person to be in this administration is that they be a Fox News host, which ultimately is not a qualification whatsoever. But I can tell you that this idea that he would say things as he's down in Texas and pretend as if this is something that only happens once every 1,000 years or whatever kind of claim he tried to make as he was down in Texas. I'm not quite 1,000 years old, but I can tell you that in the 80s, this very same river had a significant flash flooding situation where we lost lives again. So the reality is that climate change is real. The reality is that we are going to continue to face emergencies, especially since, as we just got done with the big ugly bill, they are clawing back those things that would have hopefully started to cool this planet down, because they don't believe in science. The least that they could do is believe in helping American people. Unfortunately, we continue to see Republicans decide that they want to bury their constituents instead of actually doing everything that they can to make sure that they live amazing and full lives.
Yeah, to that point, I want to go back to something you said, which I thought is very, very important. I understand very well the role of the states versus the federal government. When I was Lieutenant Governor of Maryland, serving with Bob Ehrlich, we had a horrendous hurricane come through La Plata, literally destroyed the town. Lives were lost, excessive property damage, the Chesapeake swollen, flooding. And the partnership we had as a state with the federal government and FEMA really helped us manage the recovery. Yeah. That's the point. It's really states. I mean, Alabama doesn't have the money Texas has, and Texas doesn't have the money California has.
Correct.
So the reality of it is, to your point, that relationship is important. I want you to listen real quick to North Carolina Governor Josh Stein yesterday talking about that federal expertise that you referenced.
North Carolina is a bigger state than most, so we have a pretty sophisticated emergency response team. But here's the thing, we don't get a huge storm every year. The country does. It doesn't make sense for each state to have a fully staffed emergency response team because they may not have a storm for 5 years or 10 years, but we know the country will. So let's have that expertise in the federal government.
But right?
Yeah,
it's common sense.
I know, but common sense ain't so common. That's the problem that we're facing with. No, you're absolutely right. That's exactly what we're talking about. You know, I still don't know if they've even officially declared an emergency as it relates to what happened in Missouri since this administration has been in. Right there in my hometown of St. Louis, the tornadoes that devastated that area. I know that there were concerns about FEMA's response then, and the president seemingly not really wanting to help out the state of Missouri, which is a red state. We know that his former press secretary over Arkansas, she called and said, hey, former boss, we need some money down here. We know Arkansas ain't got that much money either, right? Like, and we know that he was not necessarily looking too kindly upon them. And so even when it comes to red states, he's not really unleashing all of the resources. And the question becomes, well, what you holding on to the money for? Right? Like, what are you doing with the money? Right. Is it because you want to make sure that we've got more, you know, alligator Alcatrazes? Like, what is it? Because people are hurting. And I don't care who's in the White House. You talk about when you were the Lieutenant Governor of Maryland. I'm sure that it never crossed your mind that the only way that you would get resources is if there was someone who was a Republican that was at the helm. That's right. That is not how the federal government should work. That's not how any of us should work. Once someone is elected, they are elected as the president of these United States, and therefore you should be able to call them up. And yes, we should should have expertise, because there are going to be different weather events that hit all over the country at all times, and these are the experts, but they don't seem to have any respect for expertise. As we've seen these firings, we've seen them be like, oh, is that what you did? Oh, well, maybe we need you, right? We've seen that over and over.
Come back after the fact.
Yeah, and again, we have people that are leading and heading these agencies that have no expertise or understanding of what it is that the agencies do.
Congressman, I want to make sure that we get to another story that is originating out of Texas, and that is the effort we are seeing on the part of state Republicans to engage in redistricting. It seems pretty clear based on the reporting, if you guys want to pull up the headline from the New York Times, this is from June 9th, about the fact that the White House is where this is coming from. They have been pushing Republicans in Texas to redistrict, hoping to blunt Democratic gains. The 4 seats that Greg Abbott wants to redraw look like they belong to Al Green, Sylvester Turner, Sylvia Garcia, Mark Vesey. Is this anything other than trying to change the rules of the game halfway through the game so you can win because you can't win on the merits?
You said it real nice. They cheating. They are cheating. Say what it is, okay? Listen, if your policies are so popular, Mr. President, then trust that the American people are happy. And so you don't have to worry about the fact that the Democrats actually should have control of the House right now. The Republicans cheated in the state of North Carolina to make sure that they could get 3 pickups. And guess what? Ultimately, they ended up controlling the House by exactly 3 seats, because once they ended up controlling that Supreme Court, they redistricted. And unfortunately, now they have 10 Republicans that are elected from the House, and they have 4 Democrats when it used to be 7-7. And when you looked at the election results, it was Donald Trump who barely won the state, but then it was Democrats that won the state on all the other statewide elected positions, which tells you it's about a 50-50 state, which means that congressionally it should have been about 50-50. So the seats were correct before. Now, because he knows that if Democrats take control, regardless of how the American people feel about the Democrats right now, one thing we are going to do is we're going to block him. That's the one thing I can tell you. If you give us control of the House, we will stop some of the pain that he is inflicting. We will stop some of the idiocy, and we will actually conduct some real oversight over this administration, which is paramount, so that ultimately the American people can understand not only that Donald Trump is a failure and a fraud, but understand the people that are his accomplices that are helping him to accomplish this. We are going to shed light on all the darkness that he is bringing on the United States. And I think that that is what we all should want for good governance. No matter how you affiliate yourself, you should want somebody that is going to keep it real with you and be honest with you and transparent with you. And that is what you will get. So regardless of how much he tries to cheat, I am truly believing, just like nobody showed up for him for his little birthday parade, but the American people came out for free to let him know that there are no kings. I don't care what he tries to do. I'm truly believing that the American people are going to show him better than they can tell him.
Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, thank you for always reminding us to be good.
We could be calling her senator too. I'm just saying, Alicia. So.